All right, welcome back to another week of Doc Talks. Today we're going to talk to you about, is running as easy as you really think it is? These are a couple of concepts that we want to go over for our runners out there that are either potentially getting into running or using running currently as their method of exercise. So these are a couple of things that we want to think about. So first, this is Dr. Logan. He's going to talk to us about why is it that people start to run? Why do people run?
There's a couple different ways. Number one, big thing that people always mention to us why they want to run when they first come in is weight loss. Makes sense. It's an easy exercise. It's something that you can just lace up your shoes, walk out the front door, and just start running.
Burning calories, baby.
Exactly. There's not much to it. There's not much room for learning needed. And so that brings us to our next thing, that it's a low barrier for entry, meaning it's something that you can just do. You don't need special instructions necessarily. It's something that is just intuitive, that we can just go out and do when we feel the time's right.
Yeah, so barrier of entry, really easy. Weight loss it's really common. Everyone wants to just get out, get a good sweat, pound the pavement. It's pretty easy to get out there and do that stuff. Low barrier of entry. It's free most of the time, unless you're blowing through a bunch of running shoes and stuff like that, which a lot of runners do because they go out there and pound millions of miles and they run through shoes. But those are the big concepts that we see a lot of. But running is truly, it's a pretty intense sport. It's a lot harder than most people think, and it's something that I think there's better options when we look at some of these things, or maybe some other options that you can still accomplish weight loss, you can still accomplish easy barrier of entry, and then there's the ease of just going out and doing it, low education, or not a lot of stuff that you have to do preemptively to get into running. So are there better options? Yes, I do think, and research actually does support, instead of having steady state running, going out running for 20 minutes, running for 5 miles, whatever it is that you go out and do, that's pretty steady state, meaning your heart rate stays in a very similar zone. They're showing that if we go up and down, if we undulate, going really high to really low and then going back and forth between there, we're training a bunch of different zones of our heart rate, and we actually get better calorie burn and we get better metabolism of our body. So when we look at overall weight loss, and in the research they say that the steady state cardio of going out and just pounding the pavement doesn't perform as well as what's called high intensity interval training. So ways that you can do high intensity interval training, of course you can run fast and then run really slow or walk. That's a really good way to do it. But also with high intensity interval training, maybe start thinking of ways that you can do body weight movements. What kind of body weight movements would we be looking at?
We're talking your basic squats, your lunges, any pressing movements, push-ups, pull-ups, any rowing.
Yeah. So
basic.
All of those things are going to be not just, they don't have to just be legs, right? So when you're running, a lot of it is predominantly leg, calf areas. You can still get your upper body, your shoulders, your torso, your core. All of those things can be high intensity interval training, as long as you start thinking about the body weight movements that you can do that with. If you want to up the level of your high intensity interval training, you add in a little bit of resistance. You add in bands. You add in kettlebell, dumbbell, barbell. But again, you're moving something and getting your heart rate up very, very high, and then letting it come back down. Again, it doesn't have to be very complex. We're just thinking about the ticker here. We're trying to get the heart to really, really kind of rev up and then come back down.
But also with that too, you're talking metabolism. It's shown that high intensity interval training, you're going to have a higher metabolism for a longer period of time. So going back to that initial weight loss as reasoning for starting running, you're going to have better benefits from that. Also, just the variation of the high intensity interval training, you're varying your different exercises, you're putting different stressors on the body. So you're not going to have just that steady stimulus, that consistent, continuous pavement that can lead to overuse injuries, because it's the same things, the same tissues with the same loads over periods of time.
That's huge. I mean, if you can still get the same effect weight-wise, cardio, you can get those types of benefits without doing the same thing over and over again. Risk of overuse injury, it starts to topple. So again, thinking about different ways to stress your body but still getting a better result. better options. We talked about high intensity interval versus steady state. Then we look at actually practicing functional movements. So if you're someone that is trying to become a better athlete, if you're trying to become a better just human overall, you feel like you're more functional, then start practicing how to do things that you're going to look like that look like your daily activities, right? So if you're picking something up off the ground, if you're doing a kettlebell deadlift, if you're doing just a regular air squat, if you're picking up your kids off the ground, why not practice that stuff with a little bit more functional movement, and you're still getting your ticker to kind of go up. So that's another good way to change up the pace or change up the implement to the weight loss effect for running. And then also, there's a lot of times when people will say, yeah, I'm going to start getting into running because I want to either lose weight or I just want to get in shape. Form is pretty important for a lot of people, or at least the understanding of how to decrease the impact forces on your body. What are some like common ways that runners either potentially hurt themselves, or they can use a different strategy to become a better runner, a more efficient runner?
A lot of times we often see people, when they want to start running, they'll just go out and run 3 miles, 5 miles, 10 miles, whatever they felt they could do 10, 20 years ago, they'll just go out and do it. That's usually where you really see the initial beginnings of inflammatory responses. You'll have irritation symptoms and syndromes. So the need to progress is extremely crucial. Gathering your strength to be able to withstand those impact forces over continuous amounts of time is crucial. So again, building up to that is important, and having a progressive overload is what's really important. We were talking about all the functional movement patterns. You can progress those as needed, which is adding some resistance. So there are ways that you can slowly build up in order to strengthen the body, strengthen the tissues, so that they don't just flare up the first time you go out and start hitting the pavement.
What is running broken down in its most simple form? What is it like? How does it look on a functional movement pattern? Like, is there something that in the gym looks similar to running?
Single leg lunge, single leg RDL. We do a single leg impact when we run. So anything to mimic that motion, whether it be lunging, even just balancing, getting able to withstand that impact force with unilateral action is going to be a great way to help build up that forces initially.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Basically, running is just you're controlling every single step, and you're falling, and you're bringing one leg in front of the other. You're catching. It's a bunch of single leg hops. So when we look at this this pyramid of movement, we want to first move well. We want to move well under load or some sort of strength or resistance, and then we want to speed things up, and then finally accelerate, and then get into like the more sport specific dodging, cutting, all that kind of stuff. But we have to move well first. If we start practicing single leg hopping variations, do you think you're going to probably get better at actually running? That's what we hope. We hope that you actually get more efficient as you start practicing some of that stuff. And that's why we really hound, some of the runners that we've worked with in the past. We figure out how can we start doing single leg strengthening, because running is basically a lot of single leg times that you're going to be hitting the ground. So you need to be very strong with that. So that is running broken down in its most basic form, is single leg. Squatting, hinging variations where the lower body really has to be stable. So,
and during those two, it's a really good way to tease out if there's any imbalances, strength imbalances between the two.
Yeah.
So that's another great reason to do unilateral or single limb exercises, upper or lower body, all day.
Again, that's going to be like helpful for overuse injuries in the future for that runner. So again, is running as easy as you think it is? It can be very challenging for a lot of people, and that's why we probably see more running injuries than almost any other sport. I feel like it's just constant. They kind of get themselves boogered up pretty quickly, but I think it's because of these concepts. It doesn't always have to be running. It doesn't always have to be just pounding the pavement. There's other ways to get your heart rate up and still become a very good runner. So use those tips. If you have any questions, reach out to us, 702-558-2151, and we'll help you out with any of your running needs or pain needs. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next week.